Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, it looks like it says it's recording.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, we'll get started then. Welcome to the JDC West 2022 Marketing Case Presentation, sponsored by the Associates. Thank you to our judges, Karen Ilchena, Ariel McGill, Genevieve Peugeot. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters questions. Competitors, you will see Zoom chat notifications at various intervals to indicate the remaining time. Any speaker who continues to speak after the maximum time limit will be stopped. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience. All judges are asked to have their microphones muted during the presentation. The audience is banned from any material or naming convention that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. We ask that the audience leave the Zoom call immediately following the presentation. Judges, please stay on this call until I advise you to move on to the next call. And competitors, you may begin your presentation.
I'd just like to start off by thanking all of our judges for taking the time out of your day to be with us, and we're so excited to present for you today. My name is Rachel, and in person I'm joined with my colleague Lex. We also have our colleague Luke, who will be presenting with us over Zoom remotely. One of my favorite things growing up was visiting my grandpa's farm. He would take me out into his fields, show me all the hard work, and show all the love and care that he put into his farming. That is something I am so proud of. I'm so proud to support our Canadian farmers, and I'm so proud to be presenting to you today a company that values sourcing their products locally and supporting Canada and making being Canadian an integral part of your brand. That is something you should be so proud of. So just to start off our presentation today, I'm going to do a quick executive summary. I'm going to go over some primary and secondary problems that we identified for you today. Then my colleagues will go over some alternatives, and then our recommendation, which is all just to meet our objective that we created for you today, to create that brand awareness for Mary Brown's so you can gain a larger market share in Canada's chicken industry and the quick service restaurant industry. So just to begin, we identified a primary problem for you. Our question that we pose is, how can Mary Brown's implement an effective marketing strategy to differentiate yourselves from your competitors? So currently, the chicken sandwich industry in particular is becoming a very saturated market. You have competitors such as Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, KFC, and so this is something that you need to take into consideration going forward. How are you going to set your brand apart and make sure that you get the consumers loyal to your brand? We also identified some secondary problems. So the first one was unique product offering. One of the things your company is questioning right now is whether or not you want to diversify your products into plant-based products, or is there an alternative route to create some unique product offerings that will send your brand apart and not just be a regular chicken sandwich. Another problem we identified was brand awareness, and this is just Mary Brown's brand awareness in Canada in general. Normally, when people think of the chicken sandwich and fried chicken industry, a lot of the times Chick-fil-A, Popeyes, KFC, Wendy's comes up, and Mary Brown's is sometimes left out of that conversation. So that is something we want to make sure that you going forward are at the top of that list. And lastly, another problem is brand loyalty. This is just something that we want you to consider. Some of your competitors have strong loyalty in the US, such as Popeyes and Chick-fil-A. So going forward, we want you to get that brand loyalty for Canada and make Mary Brown's a Canadian staple. So just a quick overview of what we're going to recommend for you today is to diversify your product offering, creating chicken sandwich products from Canadian sourced ingredients. We also want you to focus on improving that in-store experience, as well as creating and diversifying into digital online experiences with that e-commerce shift. And so now I know you're just hungry to hear how we came to this recommendation, and I'm going to invite my colleague Lex to take you how we got there.
Thank you very much, Rachel. So looking into your company, we see that you source your products from Canadian suppliers and different communities, most likely your chicken from BC and from Manitoba. So it's important to maintain and utilize this loyalty with your suppliers and therefore with the community and the people who are purchasing your products. Secondly, your Canadian expansion is projected for over 30 locations expected to open, most likely in the Yukon. So there is the opportunity to expand throughout the whole country and to accommodate people with the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, your current branding is hashtag Crave Delicious, Crave Canadian. It can be better utilized to be Canadian. Instead of just using the hashtag Crave Delicious, you can make it more Canadian that way. The critical insight for the internal analysis is that Mary Brown's has a very strong Canadian history that can be taken advantage of to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So some competitive advantages that I want to lay out is that you are 100% Canadian with locally sourced chicken products from BC and Manitoba, and voted by many consumers as the #1 chicken sandwich in Canada. Now, this #1 chicken sandwich comes from the heat sealed flavor, which is more prominent than with other cooking methods. And lastly, you do have the highest Instagram and Twitter followers among all Canadian fried chicken sites. And looking outside of your company, your competitors, as Rachel has stated, consist of Popeyes, Chick-fil-A, KFC, Wendy's, and Burger King, which are all competing for this chicken sandwich market share. So you do need a unique product offering to stand out from this very, very vast market. Secondly, the global pandemic has shifted consumer dining habits to online pickup and delivery. So you must ensure that customers have an ease of access to all their digital ordering. And lastly, the industry, although eat-in sales have decreased significantly, there is a 14% increase in chicken sandwich sales over the course of the pandemic. So it's very important to highlight your chicken sandwich products to meet this growing demand. The critical insight is that it is very important to differentiate your brand and your product in this very growing and saturated chicken sandwich market. So a few ethical implications that I want to look over is, first off, the community impact of the supply chain. So these suppliers from Manitoba and BC are the source of Mary Brown's. They come from small communities, farmers such as Rachel's grandpa. So if you want to switch to a different alternative, such as plant-based, this may cut off these suppliers from these local communities and harm their economy. And secondly, the global pandemic is always an ethical implication. You need to ensure that both employees and consumers are safe and socially distanced when they're providing or gaining the services. So I want to outline a target market, Chicken Lovin' Charlie. So both male and female, age 18 to 34, who lives in Canada. They value ethically sourced products. They're proud to be Canadian and love to support local, and they do prefer socially distanced dining due to the pandemic. So with that, they are more likely to use a website, an app, or pick up the phone to pick up or get their order delivered instead of eating in. So 3 decision criteria that I want to go over for our recommendation is, first off, a unique competitive advantage. So I outlined 5 competitive advantages, but the main thing is to differentiate yourself even more from these competitors. So the ones coming up from the United States to Canada, they are poaching your target. So it's important to have that unique product offering. Secondly, having things ethically sourced. So as I stated, having it shipped from the local suppliers and making sure that it is ethical the whole way throughout the supply chain. And lastly, the target market appeal. So maintaining and ensuring that the target market appeal of Chicken Lovin' Charlie is met with all of the recommendations. So we have 3 explored alternatives for you today. So first off is Green Mary, which is focusing on integrating and promoting a plant-based product in order to penetrate the vegetarian and the vegan consumers. So this focused product offering would consist of plant-based chicken, whether that's patties for a burger or simply just chicken strips. Secondly is American Mary. So expanding into the United States market in an attempt to take away some market share from Chick-fil-A and Popeyes. There is a cult following behind those in the United States. So if you could undercut those, that could be a possibility. And this focused product offering would be your current spicy chicken sandwich and your current products as well. And lastly, Maple Mary. So implementing a brand strategy that emphasizes your Canadian competitive advantage, which promotes unique locally sourced product offering. So 2 product offerings that I want to focus on are the Maple Mary sandwich and the Brown's Bannock sandwich. And now I would like to invite Luke to dig deeper into our alternatives matrix and our recommendation.
Thank you, Lex. So looking at the three alternatives through the lens of this alternative matrix, we can see that the clear winner is the Maple Mary, which is our recommendation. And we're going to look at how we want that implemented today. However, I'd like to take a moment to simply talk about Green Mary, as it came close to being a decision. The reason why we didn't choose it was because it is already incredibly saturated, even when compared to the current chicken market. And secondly, even though there is a demand for it, the vast majority of consumers still prefer chicken in the current market. So diversifying into the green market is not necessarily the smartest choice. So we're going to go take a look at the implementation process for Maple Mary. So the recommendation we have for you, as mentioned by Rachel, is to develop a unique chicken sandwich product line and other types of menu items, followed by in-store marketing, so the point of sale kiosks and more Canadian branding in store, followed by improving the digital online experience. So revamping the online order experience, app loyalty program, and paid digital advertising. So the key messages are on your screen now. Sorry, but we're the best chicken, eh? And keeping it Canadian since 1969. So these reinforce the fact that you are the #1 chicken sandwich in Canada, and your brand is Canadian since 1969. So those are the key messages we would like to reinforce with all of our marketing efforts here today. So here's a snapshot of some market research that we have done. We identified some pain points both online and in store. Online, we can see that it is difficult to scroll through the options. You have to constantly go back and forth through that menu in the top right, or sorry, top left there, as opposed to simply being able to click through them or scroll through them. So that would be something to consider in our implementation. As for in-store, the lack of Canadian branding, with the exception of on the door, incorporate that into the decor of your locations, as well as long wait times, which could be mitigated by the kiosks, which we will get into shortly. So for implementation phase 1, we're looking to immediately revamp the website, improving the functionality as mentioned, ordering and removing customer pain points, and that comes at a cost of $50,000. And this is immediately followed up by improving the in-store experience and branding, so promoting Canadian and locally sourced products visible in the store via packaging and decor, and this comes at a cost of $100,000. After this, we recommend to begin product development, so start looking at suppliers to develop these Maple Mary chicken sandwiches and these Brown's Bannock sandwiches, and this comes at a cost of $100,000. And lastly, for phase 1, we're looking at in-store kiosks to improve the in-store ordering process with these point of sale kiosks, and this comes at a cost of $300,000, broken down into $1,500 chunks for each store, which is $200 total. Now looking at phase 2, we're looking at the new product offering. So the new product offering we recommend is the Maple Mary chicken and waffle sandwich, as well as the Brown's Bannock chicken sandwich. And these combos will retail for $14.99 each. And these are the ingredients that reinforce that Canadian brand identity. The maple syrup, the waffles, the bannock. These are ways of turning a mainstream fan favorite into a very Canadian aesthetic. So we're going to move on to phase number 2 here. So we're looking to join the online chicken sandwich war with the key messages that we want to incorporate into our posts. Sorry to step in here, but we have the best chicken sandwiches in a Twitter feud, and this is going to be posted organically, so there's no cost associated to this aside from account management internally. Following this, we're looking to incorporate some digital media content, so posting photos of products and videos of behind the scenes, so showing a farm to plate type process on Instagram and Twitter to have the customer feel more engaged and relatable to the company. And this comes at a cost of approximately $15,000, broken down into $1,200 per month. After this, we recommend a paid digital media advertising campaign. So place digital advertisements on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And the reason we chose these 3 platforms is because with the demographic of chicken loving Charlie, people aged 18 to 34 frequent these the most. And this comes at a cost of $75,000. And lastly, for phase 2, we're looking to release Brown's Bannock product offering. So we'll release the Brown's Bannock product on June 24th, which is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And this again is to increase our community outreach with the Indigenous community in Canada and to make the Canadian market feel included and respected and just have that sense of connection with your brand. And this comes at a cost of $10,000 for extra digital promotion. And as for phase 3, this is the last phase of our implementation. We're looking at a loyalty program for the app where users get a free stamp upon purchase, where they buy 9 and get the 10th for free. And this comes at a cost of $50,000. Following this, we recommend the chicken sandwiches be given away in a giveaway during the National Chicken Month, which is September. This falls perfectly in line with the back to school timeline. And so this could be done either with schools to give away for lunch programs or to hospitals and frontline workers. And we recommend $25,000 for this expense divided by 250 nurses or students per week. And following this, we would like to release the Merry Maple Chicken and Waffle Sandwich. And this would release on October 20th, National Chicken and Waffle Day. And this will cost $25,000 for extra digital promotion across these platforms. Lastly, review and revise the sales goals. So ensure that the market is responding well to our marketing efforts and the campaigns we have launched. And again, this will be done internally. And so the cost for this is already accounted for in the account management. And now a brief snapshot of our timeline. We're looking to immediately start with the website revamp, the in-store kiosks and marketing efforts, as well as product development, which is then followed by our online presence and paid advertising. And then in June and October, we're looking to release both of the new developed products. And then the chicken sandwich giveaway will be done for the month of September, as mentioned. And so following this, we have a pie chart here showing the total budget allocation expressed in percentages. And as you can see here, the kiosks take up 40% of the budget and the rest is distributed pretty evenly. And that was based on your quote of $750,000 for your marketing budget. And now moving on to our break-even analysis for the marketing budget. In order for this to break even and to turn a profit, we have a pessimistic, realistic, and optimistic alternative for you here. So looking at these different margin rates, for the pessimistic, you would need to sell 1 million sandwiches in the year, which is 5,000 per store. Realistically, we're looking at 500,000 sandwiches in the year, which is 2,500 per store. And optimistically, we're looking at just over 333,000 sandwiches broken down into just over 1,600 sandwiches per store. And so now I would like to pass it off to Rachel once again to discuss the potential risks with our proposal and how we can mitigate them.
Thank you so much for that, Luke. So of course, with every recommendation, there is the potential for some risks to be involved with that, but we've already thought ahead and created some mitigations for those that could potentially occur. So the first one we thought of was the branding not being visible. So in the chicken sandwiches, we do want that patties to be maple leaf shape. However, with that being in the burger itself, maybe it just won't be visible to consumers and not be as effective as we would like. So this is a mitigation to this is instead brand the logo or maple leaf on the bun and the bannock. So that would be visible while they're eating it. There's also another product offering to consider in the future, such as maple leaf chicken nuggets. That is something Burger King used to do with their crowns. It was an iconic logo and everyone knew where those chicken nuggets came from. Second risk is competition adaptation. So there is the potential that your competitors could see your new product offerings and try to imitate that in their own line. A way to mitigate this is to continue to innovate, to incorporate and promote more Canadian product offerings. But another mitigation to this risk is when you think of it, Canadian product offerings won't really fit in with their brand as long as you focus and highlight the Canadian aspects and the Canadian locally sourced products. Your competitors really won't be able to compete with that. And one of the last risks we identified was the potential for cultural appropriation with that specifically that Brown's bannock sandwich. So that is something that we would take into consideration during the product development stage, conducting surveys and actually doing community outreach to get their opinion and approval. This will also be part of the product development stage where we are sourcing the organic recipes and ingredients from local Aboriginal leaders as well to get them involved in that process, to get that community connection and like give back to our community, which is so important for your brand. We also identified some key performance indicators. So the first one we identified was a 14% increase in your chicken sandwich sales. We just based this off of the industry average. So in 2019, the chicken sandwich sales did increase by 14%. We want your sales to also increase with that, so you are maintaining your market share and you are growing as those sales grow as well. We also want to increase your social media followers to approximately 60,000. This is roughly doubling what you have now. This is on Instagram and Twitter. This will be done through paid digital advertising, as well as integrating the apps and getting that promoted there as well. Lastly, we do want 80% of your sales to come from online ordering and takeout. So a 40-40-20 ratio of getting people on your apps, doing takeout, ordering through the kiosks, and as well giving them an option to sit. So just to conclude, what we've done for you today is we are so proud to represent Canada and proud to present to you this recommendation. You guys are a Canadian company and you have the opportunity to be a Canadian staple. You'll be able to create a brand that is Canada, and that is something you should be so proud of what you do for your community going forward. We now like to thank you and open the floor for questions.
Okay, let's start with Jay.
Can you go back to the slide where you talked about changing to some offshore suppliers or changing some of your source of materials? I think it was. Yeah. So I guess my comment would be, if you guys thought about the implications of, potentially cutting off your Canadian farmers / suppliers, I guess the risk there with regards to like being a Canadian company and you're sort of priding yourselves around the Canadian core values. I think that might be something that I would consider like maybe a little bit iffy if that's something that you guys are going forward with, or sort of what was the rationale behind that?
We were planning on keeping the Canadian suppliers, as it may be more expensive in the short and long run, but it's very important to keep your brand solely Canadian, that 100% Canadian that you strive for.
Just to add on to that, one of the reasons that we focused on keeping it local and Canadian is another ethical implication in regards to environmental costs. If you are sourcing from America, not only does that take away from your community and the jobs, the people that are your consumers and who are supporting your brand, but also you're not going to take into consideration the environmental costs, the extra carbon transmissions and shipping expenses as well.
Thanks.
Karen?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering, the kiosks, you've accounted for kiosks in our existing stores. What about if we expand? How would you account for that, or what would be the plan for the expansion?
Going forward, definitely that is something we recommend that you implement in your stores. If you have budget constraints and you aren't willing to potentially expand the budget for your new locations, there is a potential to kind of ease in those kiosks implementation and doing it in phases and doing select stores until you get those revenues from these additional sales in our marketing and get the revenue to cover those.
Thank you.
Genevieve?
Yeah, hey, thanks. Awesome job. Man, you brought back bad memories of corporate finance with your break-even analysis. The whole idea that Canada's our brand and Canada's sells, and the idea to bring in these themed menu items is really neat. In your budget, did you consider focus testing those products? I know you had your product development is the term you use. Is that what you meant? Is that included in the budget?
That is correct. So the $100,000, I believe, that we quoted for product development includes looking at suppliers and sources of acquiring the raw materials to create these menu items, as well as potentially trying these out on a target market and a target audience to determine whether or not they're popular, whether or not people support having these items such as the Bannock burger, especially specifically with the Indigenous communities, making sure that they're on board with it and they support it and feel represented and respected is very important. So to answer your question, yes, that is incorporated in the product development phase.
Just to add on to that as well, we do have focus testing. We implemented it into our marketing through the product development in reaching out to the Indigenous communities, as well in the slide here when we are doing those chicken sandwich giveaways. That's actually being on the timeline prior to the actual release of the product. And that is going to be some of our focus testing there and getting feedback from that when we're donating and giving samples out to the community.
Okay, I don't think anyone has any more questions, so we can wrap that up then. Oh wait, Jay, did you have something to add? Okay. All right. Okay, I think that concludes the Q&A then. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to watch the presentation and help our experience.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
All righty.